Hello and welcome to Labor Talks. I'm your host, Laurie Gruber, and today's special guest is Don Mowry. Did I pronounce that right?
That's correct.
Don currently serves as Eau Claire County Board Supervisor from District 9. Welcome to Labor Talks, Don.
Glad to be here.
Good to have you here. For the viewing audience, can you tell us a little bit about you?
Okay. Well, I've been an Eau Claire County resident since 1988 when I accepted a teaching position in the social work department at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire. I'm married. My wife and I have 2 children, but we're now both retired. We love our community, and we have no interest in moving to warmer climate or anything. We like the 4 seasons. We actually have 2 grown children who also have moved back to Eau Claire. My son just recently. I had a 27-and-a-half-year career as a professor, and for 12 of those, I was also the director of the Center for Service Learning. So that gave me some engagement in the community, helping students to find places where they could meet their service learning graduation requirement. And I've been engaged in the community. I've been a member of the board of Clear Vision Eau Claire since 2008. I've served 3 terms on the board of the Eau Claire Area Hmong Mutual Assistance Association, 1 term on Big Brothers Big Sisters, and I'm currently president of a nonprofit that's trying to develop more community-based reentry services.
Nice.
For people who are in reentry and recovery from incarceration.
You currently serve as the County Board Supervisor from District 9, or for District 9.
Okay.
Can you tell us where that district is?
Okay. It's mostly a rural district, but it stretches as far north as one side of Claremont, West Claremont Avenue, and as far south as the county line. And the western border is the Dunn County line. So it's the town of Drammen, town of Brunswick, and Ward 2 of Union.
Okay. So I go through your district on my way home then.
Okay, right.
What issues do you feel are currently most important for the county board to address?
There's numerous issues, and I can't enumerate them all, but I'll pick 3. I think it's very important that we protect the natural environment. We have a lot of private wells in my district, and some of them are threatened by pollution from nitrates or even from the presence of large confined animal feeding operations, or even a large development with multiple septic systems. That can leach into the groundwater. Of course, mining operations, too, can be a threat to the water. I think we have excellent natural recreational resources, the Chippewa Valley, the River Trail, our rivers, our streams, the parks, and I think that brings people to Eau Claire, makes us a destination, plus it enhances our own quality of life. I'm on the board of Beaver Creek Reserve, and that's, I think, a gem that we have in our county. And I think also by moving towards a goal of 100% renewable energy by 2050, both the city and the county are trying to take steps to protect those resources. Second would be we need to be fiscally responsible, but we need to invest in our infrastructure and in our people. We did increase the vehicle registration fee during my first term in office, and it was a matter of the roads need to be fixed. If they are allowed to deteriorate, it's going to be even more expensive to fix them. So by investing in roads now, we can save ourselves money in the future. And I just saw an article in Leader-Telegram that it's working. The roads, the PACER index has improved, which is good.
The new highway commissioner in the last couple of years, I think, has helped too.
Yeah. And so that's a 10-year plan to bring that goal up. As a rural resident, I live in Brunswick town, and I'm spoiled because I have high-speed fiber-to-the-door internet, but a lot of the Brunswick town does not, a lot of Drammen does not, and that's very important for small businesses, for agribusiness is becoming increasingly dependent on GSI to attract new residents, telehealth, telecommuting, education. About 18% of children in our nation do not have access to the internet. At the same time, about 3/4 of the teachers assign homework that
needs the internet.
And I'm currently serving as chair of we have a county broadband committee as of last fall, and we're addressing that. And we're
very important.
Grants for that. And investing in people too, educational levels, I think people deserve a living wage, access to health care, low-income housing. And in the rural area, rural youth development is very important, and 4-H programs via UW-Madison Extension are very important. I'm also working on the governing board of a new public charter school that's going to be located at Anthony Acres School, which is an unused former primary school, and that was used for 4K. But that's going to be opening in 2020, in this fall.
Okay.
Eventually, it'll be 6th through 12th grade. It'll be project-based, place-based education, and it'll meet the learning needs of some children who don't learn well in an hour of math, an hour of science, and an hour of English. They'll be doing projects that have that integrated into the project, so they'll
more
be
hands-on.
More hands-on, right? And then finally, I think fiscal responsibility. I've been involved in the development of the AIM court as an alternative to incarceration for mothers. Keep them in their home and with their children rather than put them in jail and place the children in foster care. Also, I was on the jail population study, volunteered for that, and I just volunteered for a peer learning network, National Association of Counties, through the Stepping Up initiative, which is trying to move people who have mental illness from jail and into treatment in the community. And these are all evidence-based approaches to alternatives to incarceration. I think we also have to address the meth and the opioid epidemic more so on the prevention end. I've been going through a Citizen Police Academy, which is I think about a 13-week, once a week, exposure to the sheriff's office and all the different programs, the drug task force, the jail, the detectives, the SWAT team, and so on. And everyone I've asked is, if we could change one thing, what would it be? And they all say meth. If they could eliminate that, their lives would be safer, and the jails would be less crowded. One bailiff, which is one of the positions that the sheriff's office staffs, said that about his estimate was 75% of the court cases today are meth related. Yeah. And I know there's a task force that's working on it, but I think we could do even more in terms of prevention and education and trying to get people to not even try it, meth in the first place.
Well, we've had problems, I think more recently, too, of huffing, where
right.
we hadn't heard of it again for a long time, and now
Yeah.
we've had multiple deaths because of people that were huffing. And then, of course, we're a trafficking state, so we got to worry about that, especially being
That's
on that
true.
94 corridor. You already mentioned that you serve on a couple of committees. One of them you said was broadband. Which other committees have you been on?
I was assigned, when I first was elected, to 3. One was Beaver Creek, and then I'm on the Human Services Board, so I see the impact of the meth and opioid there too, because there's an overreach in the Human Services budget, primarily due to increase in alternate care for children, so foster care, residential treatment, and those. People take longer to recover from meth, and they need need more time, so that's adding to the cost of placing children outside of the home. And I'm on the Extension, UW-Madison Extension Committee too. So those are the 3 assigned ones. I volunteered for the Jail Population Study, the Stepping Up Committee, the Jail Reentry Committee, and the Broadband Committee.
I live in a village 2 miles off I-94, and we don't have broadband. We don't have high speed.
Really? What village?
In Hammond in St. Clair County.
Okay, yeah.
Because there's this battle between this one can't bring in fiber optic high speed. If this one's in town too, only one of them can. Oh, but you can't get their service because you're 10 blocks too far away from their hub.
Right.
I'm 15 minutes from the border going over to Minnesota, and I can't get high-speed internet. It makes no sense to me.
I hear those stories on a daily basis as I'm out canvassing.
And I know that there's been, you mentioned the human services, I know that there's been, that's a mandated thing from the state.
It is.
And yet it's underfunded.
It is underfunded from the state, and the Wisconsin Association of Counties did, as many of the human service boards put forth a resolution to the county boards, and they passed in several counties, and they went to the state asking for additional funding. And they did get some, but it's not enough. And I think Family and Children's Services is one of the lowest funded programs where the state passes money to the counties to perform a mandated service. So it's an unfunded mandate.
Well, and Walker's last budget, he was trying, because I always testify,
Yeah.
they were trying to take away money for elderly with dementia and Alzheimer's. And I'm like, and that's the other end of the human services that we need.
Sure.
And you can't take that money away from, it's like taking the money away from PTSD veterans.
Right.
You can't do it, they need it. You can't just say they don't have it, it's all in their head.
Yeah. Yeah, the most vulnerable, voiceless, defenseless
Part of our
population we have,
community.
and that's kind of our measure of our society. If we don't take care of them, then we're not. I think we're failing as a society.
I know a lot of people, will cross the street, walk the other side instead of seeing if there's anything that they can help. So it's good to know that there are people like you that are stepping up and volunteering for some of these other programs too in the studies.
Thank you.
You're retired from UW, where you were a social welfare educator. What major trends do you see in the social status of Wisconsin families?
I think that what we just mentioned in terms of the programs that are mandated and through the state and through the counties for child abuse, neglect, elder abuse, and so on are underfunded. And that's a challenge. Our poverty rate locally is pretty high. I think it's second only to Milwaukee. And if you factor in families that have asset limited, income constrained, employed, they're working, but they're still very limited in terms of their assets, and they don't have a lot of savings. And just take one car repair or
one sickness.
Or one sickness or one loss of job to really push them into poverty or perhaps even homelessness. So I think that's like in the high 40% are poor, or at least they're asset limited, income constrained. The county did, before I was elected, pass a living wage ordinance for county employees and for anyone that contracts with the county, but the state took that away.
State also took away the Medicare money, which is our money, which would have helped those families that are on that cusp, trying to dig their way out of the bottom, and now they just get knocked back down again.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The state could do a lot to help us if they chose to. Healthcare, I think everyone should have access to healthcare. We've already mentioned the meth and opioid epidemics. I think we should have child care available and affordable for families. That's a major expense for working families that are low income. I'm really disappointed that we don't fund our public schools adequately, and that we're spending a higher percentage of funding for special ed to private voucher schools, and that comes off the top, and then the 421 districts that are remaining get what's left over.
And I swear the rural schools get it worse because there's not enough funding for those kids that are out in those smaller areas. And
yeah, and sometimes they're stressed because their tax rate is higher if they have luxury homes on the banks of Lake Pepin.
Right.
That causes their taxes to go up, and then that money goes elsewhere anyway to another district. And then rural broadband I've already mentioned too.
Which was important. Do you feel that Eau Claire County and our state are doing enough to preserve and enhance our natural resources?
I think that we are paying more attention to it, but I don't think we're doing enough. And one example I would give is being on the governance board of Anthony Acres Public Charter School. I know that well is polluted with nitrates, and it's in the range of 9 to 12 when it's tested. 10 is supposedly the limit. But if you talk to an expert on water quality, they would privately, and I have talked to one, he would say that privately, if his well tested 5, 6, 7, he would put in a reverse osmosis system. So, we know that there's health impacts for children and pregnant women.
And elderly.
Nitrates and elderly. But do we want to take a chance that it's not impacting everyone's health? And I think the legislature has made it difficult for people who are living locally to challenge economic development when it has an impact. And mining is another example. The sand mines.
The sand mines, which were putting benzene in the water.
Yeah.
But in the case where you're talking about a rural area, a lot of people just turn around and blame it on the farmers. It's not just any farmer, it's the big ones.
It happens, yeah. There's much more manure, and it's harder to dispose of it properly. And if the soil is like Kewaunee County, if it's karst geographic soil formation, then once it's in the ground, it goes anywhere.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
Well, and you can't get rid of, the phosphorus that's running off from it's not just farmers either, it's the companies.
Right.
And I mean, I grew up on a dairy farm along a river and beautiful, pristine waters.
Yeah.
And you hate to think of what's happening to our waterways. On Village Board where we are, I know that we get in trouble with the DNR anytime the nitrates get to 4. So if when you're hearing that a well is at that high a nitrate level,
yeah, and there's I don't know if they're spreading manure from a CAFO around Anthony Acres, or if it's just the fertilizer application, but I think it's the nitrates that
years of penetration from.
Yeah.
Do you feel? Are you satisfied with the fiscal responsibility of Eau Claire County?
I am. I know that there's been a couple departments that have had overages. This year, not so much the Sheriff's Department. They haven't been sending prisoners to other counties, to other county jails. And I think partly that's because we are making an effort in the area of prevention. We do have a jail reentry social worker that works with people to try and link them with resources when they're in the jail and then once they leave, so that they're not cycling in and out of jail. And all the work that the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council has done, the DA's office, the reentry committee, and Human Services in conjunction. There's a human service worker that spends 20 hours a week in the jail too for mental health crises. So we're working to try and address that, and I think that's working. Where we're still over is in human services, and again, that's due to the meth and opioid epidemic primarily, and the overages in alternate care for children.
Not enough room in the shelters, and.
Yeah. So I think it's the state of Wisconsin who is not fiscally responsible in terms of their commitment. We're supposed to be, as a county, kind of an arm of the legislature, but if they cut off our arm, or if they're not giving us enough money, but they're mandating that we do all this work, then.
And you take one step forward by doing the referendum type thing that you did for the living wage ordinance, and then they turn around and back it out and say, no, you can't do that. Plus, as a village board member, I also know we don't get the shared revenues we're supposed to be able to have. We don't have the ways to raise taxes in other ways to come up with the money to pay these things. And I know there are judges in Eau Claire County that believe in treatment courts, restorative justice, but not to have the state back them up and give them the money. I mean, when you think of the amount of overhead in our prison system.
Yeah. And you don't have to look far. I mean, there are many states that are doing things that is reducing their prison population and bringing more treatment and more, a humane approach to people with issues and problems, and allowing them to live in the community and avoid being recidivist.
Well, and I've run into people where, if that department's not making money, okay, and in our case it was the municipal court and the police department. The municipal court and the police department are not a for-profit department.
Right.
They're not supposed to be making money. They're supposed to be helping the community, not just leveling fines and, and it's how to get through to the people in our areas about it. Is a challenge, especially when they're invited to come to meetings. They can come to an open meeting and listen, but do they?
Sometimes. When there's something that affects
them.
So I think, overall, I would say that Eau Claire County is very responsible with the funds it manages, but the funds it receives are nowhere near what they need to fulfill the commitment to the people and to the state.
We also went a little bit on the roads. Do you feel the infrastructure is sufficient to meet the needs of Eau Claire County?
I do think it's improving, but again, it's almost, we were forced to pass the vehicle registration fee increase, sometimes referred to as the wheel tax. But that wasn't you know, we would have preferred to have had like a regional ability to have a regional transit authority that could tax and could share that with the cities, the towns, and the county, so that everyone could improve their infrastructure. And that came out when it was proposed. And the city said, well, you know, a lot of the roads that people drive on are city roads. And we said, sorry, legally we can't share that money.
And it's that jurisdiction.
Right.
It's like, who does it?
It is, you know, they're trying to get to that PACER score of 6 on a 10-point by 2030, but I think they're already inching up. There was an article, I think, just a day or two ago that it's at like 5.3 now or something, so it's getting improved. And you can go on the county website, right on the main page, and look at all the projects are being funded by that registration fee. Yeah.
And where I live, they have the wheel tax as well, but and it's been there as long as I've lived up here.
Yeah.
But we met. I had him on the show. The highway commissioner came on the show a couple years ago, and we talked about how the voters of the state give our transportation and our highways a D. And he said we're millions of dollars and years behind on highway projects. I'm on the highway every day, and I swear I see a lot of waste. The way that they're redoing the highways, it's like, all right, why are you building a thing down the middle so that you can redo the sides, and then you're going to tear this up? And because I go west every night on 94, we need 3 lanes both ways. We really do, especially from Menominee over.
Okay.
And to not see them doing that or putting the train in, which I would really love to see the train.
I would too. Yep.
It would make such a difference. But and I know that when you got a heavy snow year, not this year wasn't that bad, but the year before was, and they got to take the money that could have been for street outlay or road outlay and having to put it into salt, brine, and overtime.
Yeah, overtime. Yeah.
So now you're currently up for re-election. Is there anything that you'd like to tell the voters in District 9?
Yeah. Well, I would like to tell everyone in the county that I feel like I've just passed my probationary period, and I know enough now to be somewhat effective. So I think I'm in a position, especially on the broadband committee and with the, working with the Stepping Up initiative, where I can have an impact. We did pass a resolution last night in the county board that called Broadband Forward, and that's one thing that you need to do. And there's telecommuting for it, which we have all the towns addressing, and 5 of them have passed it. We need to have these things in place in order to be better prepared to get a grant from the state broadband program. So I'm committed to expanding broadband from border to border in the county, also maintaining the infrastructure, the roads, and supporting our public schools and maintaining and investing in people, be it through supporting CBTC or Anthony Acres or public schools, and 4-H programs I think are important for the rural areas and for District 9 because families can't just drop everything and come to town.
I was a 4-H kid, so it really gave you ways to the kids to be involved in community projects, community betterment, like the highway projects and we always did the really pretty flowers on the different intersections, and a lot of kids think that 4-H is just animals. It's not.
Yeah. No, it's very complex. My wife and I enrolled our kids in 4-H, and we didn't last, and our kids didn't last because I think we never figured it out. It's so complex.
It's not just a meeting a month. There's other community things that they need to do. After the election, what do you think will be the number one thing that the county's going to really focus on, or should focus on?
Well, I'm going to be focused on expanding broadband, so writing grants for broadband expansion. And I think that's going to help. We just had a forward analytics report on our desk at the county board meeting last night that the rural areas are in trouble. They're losing people. They're losing the ability to promote economic development. And I know from studies that have been done in other states that expanding broadband access increases everything. Increases educational levels, people get better jobs, it's helpful for agribusiness, and people can telecommute, they can receive telehealth services. So it just improves everything. And in this day and age, it's kind of like rural electrification. We should just do it. Yeah, because it'll benefit everyone in the long run, and it's a great investment in the future.
My dad was a director for electric co-op, rural electric, and they were involved in broadband and satellite and things like that. But you're running into a lot of problems with natural resources where you don't want to mess with the habitats to bring the lines and stuff through. But we need high speed in the schools, in the libraries, and people don't think farmers need it. Yeah, they're running a business, even the small little mom and pop, although there aren't very many of those left, unfortunately. And when I drive through the county that I grew up in, I see all the barns down. People aren't farming those farms. They can't afford to fix them because it's considered an improvement and betterment that could tax on it. There's got to be a way that we can start tying back the rural people so that they don't keep leaving.
Sure.
And where they'll turn back and re-cement themselves or commit themselves to the county.
Yeah, I agree.
You mentioned the Step Up program a couple different times. Can you go over that a little bit?
Okay, that's a national initiative of the National Association of the Counties, and there's another criminal justice organization that's part of it. But it's they've outlined a series of steps for counties. They've had training for county board members and for criminal justice staff people. But it's to move people who have to identify and then find ways to treat people with mental health issues in the jail, and then follow them and have like a soft handoff to resources in the community
like
to kind of break that
home or
to break that cycle of coming back. There was a study done in Eau Claire County, and I think it was a 3-year period, but they had 174, I think it was, people who had been in jail 9 times or more. And we know the counties one thing they recommend is to do a brief mental health screen at booking. And we're starting to do that in Eau Claire. We're starting to ask some of those questions, and we're going to start doing the actual 8. It's only 8 questions. It takes maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, plus an observational rating. But to identify people when they first come into jail, and then try to link them with resources while they're in the jail, as well as develop a plan.
So they have a reason to look forward when they get out,
right.
Rather than, okay, I have my room, I have my board, I have my food, I have everything I need in jail. Let's just do what I have to do to go back.
Yeah.
So we have to do better, like you said, for the transition. Right. Is there anything that you would like to add?
I would just add, as part of one of the things I'm most proud of as a social work faculty member is I developed a course which became a required course for social work majors, and it's an elective course for others who are very interested in the notion of human rights. So I'm a firm believer in human rights as well as individual responsibility. But I think there's a reason why most of the nations of the world came together and passed that Universal Declaration back in 1948. They didn't want anything like the Holocaust to happen ever again. So I think everyone should have the right to an education, adequate housing, the right to form a union, employment that pays a living wage, health care, child care, and security in old age, or if you have a disability, or if you're a veteran with PTSD. So I think that we have a long way to go to fulfill that dream of universal human rights in this country.
And safe working environments.
Safe work, yeah, that's another one.
In the last week and a half, besides Milwaukee, where the gun violence took 5 union members, we also lost a union member in Wisconsin Rapids at one of the paper mills and one of the mills in Prentice, where a young guy was crossing the outside work area and was hit by a front end loader. We need to really stress, the safety. And April 28th is Workers' Memorial Day, so it's a good time when we remember those things too.
Okay. Yep.
So.
Yeah, Phil reminds me every year.
And you come this year. Well, we're running out of time. I've really enjoyed speaking with you today, Don. My thanks to our viewing audience and to you, because our program wouldn't be available if we didn't have you to come in and speak with us. My thanks also to our folks behind the cameras. who not only make the show available and they give us an outlet for our voices. The channel 993 twice weekly, you can find Labor Talks, or you can also find it on a YouTube search under Labor Talks. Thanks for viewing.